What's up, guys and gals? Your host with the most, Griever, as always. And this is my second time trying to record this damn thing because my microphone was muted. This is unfortunate, so we're re-recording BLEACH, episode 10 review. And yes, I heard that episodes 12 and 13, I believe, are going to be an hour-long episode. That's going to be a lot of fun. But jumping into this particular episode, this is the conclusion of... This episode has basically two parts. It's Kenpachi versus Kenpachi, which is awesome, and it's everything I expected it to be. If anybody wanted this to be like 3 episodes long of just crazy extra, fighting between the two of them, I think there was no way in hell you set your expectations way too high, but there was a lot more to the fight than was in the manga, and it was stretched as far as I think it was necessary for it to be. We still had the exact same conversations and everything. Apparently people were complaining about the tone and the color, but once again, Mugen has to look like that. I mean, let's be real, that's where they were fighting. And then once we get the Bankai going, the red aesthetic, the blood aesthetic is just absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful. Everything worked. I thought everything worked extremely well in that fight. One criticism I would have is that for pacing reasons, I understand why they did this. But I would have honestly preferred they take the later half of this episode, tack that on to episode 9, and basically make this whole episode the Kenpachi versus Kenpachi fight. From start to finish, the whole episode is just about their fight. We don't go from episode 9 to episode, starting the fight, and doing some of the fight, to episode 10, continuing the fight. I would have preferred the whole fight to be one episode. I really would. But that doesn't mean that I thought that this part was bad. I think the choreography is fantastic. I think the animation is great. I think the fight was everything we could have hoped for. The send-off to Unohana, the conversations. There is one thing. I've gone back and forth ever since I read this, because I was reading this weekly at the time, of course. I've gone back and forth to whether I like it or whether I don't like the fact that Kenpachi as a fucking child is stronger than the Kenpachi. That, to me, was just like, wait, what? And Unohana states it in the anime, she states it in the manga, she states it in the Viz translation, she states it in every translation that I was weaker than you. Simple as that. She would have lost had Kenpachi not limited himself. And when I was doing the watch party today, because I actually managed to do that with Misk and some other fellas, and I'm sure that'll be released on his Patreon or whatever. When we were doing this, they mentioned, I think it was Misk mentioned that this is I don't mind it, but this is a retcon to explain Kenpachi losing to Ichigo in the Soul Society. And I'm like, I mean, we had to keep watching the episode, but I would argue 100% against that. It was never a retcon. You can argue that this is Kubo's way around explaining it all, but retcon would imply that there's a problem. Like Sasakibe's. Like being knocked out by Ichigo in the Soul Society. That holds a bit of an issue, given that he had a Bankai and all this stuff, and he's the one who gave Yamamoto the scar, the second scar, and all that stuff. Yeah, now you have a bit of an issue from the power scaling perspective, but Kenpachi's makes sense. Once again, I think just retcon is the incorrect word. Kubo found a way to explain it all, and did it very, very well, where there are no holes plot-wise necessarily. And so I actually really enjoy this. When did Kubo decide that this was going to be the case? Who the hell knows? But, and when was Unohana considered the first Kenpachi? Who the hell knows? Fact of the matter is that the reveal of Unohana as Kenpachi makes a whole lot of sense in the story, because she's always been touted to be very scary even when she's smiling and stuff like that. And also the fact that she's one of the original captains, still considered the original captains, along with Ugatake and Shunsui and stuff. So it was like, wait a minute. So she's as old or older than they are, so how's that going? And we find out all that information. But once again, I do agree. It didn't feel, the reason that I didn't like it was a retcon. It wasn't that it was a retcon necessarily. As I said, I don't agree with that. I think that it was like, hey, Instead of people complaining that Kenpachi's been getting stronger, like how the hell did he lose to Shikai level Ichigo and stuff? Hey now, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, well, you could argue Ichigo just has a stupid amount of spiritual pressure, but he's seemingly still like a badass, he's still really strong. It's like, he's limiting himself. He constantly limits himself and stuff. And that was explained. That was part of his character at his introduction, and it works as an actual crux to his character now here in this fight. But the thing I didn't like, as I said, I go back and forth, was that once again Unohana lost to Kenpachi as a fucking child, lost to Zaraki as a child. I was never super crazy about that. But now watching, I reread the volume, and then I watched the episode, of course, and I think I like it now. I think it actually does make more sense. I think it's just when you're overloaded with shonen stuff, and there were problems in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc leading up, after that and stuff. So maybe I was looking on it more poorly because of all the other things that happened that I didn't care for. I think the real reason, it's perfectly acceptable. Unohana's explanation is beautiful in the fact that the job of the strongest, which is the Kenpachi, that's why only one exists in an era, is to do one of two things. Your sword either nourishes and points towards the next strongest, or it stays stagnant, sort of idea. So her explanation that she went out and found this prodigy, which you could argue, everyone says Aizen's such a great villain, which he is. Aizen was just too smart for his own good. That's part of his character crux. The Hogyoku finally gave him what he wanted. It was taking away his powers. Taking away because he was way up here. He was so far above everybody. And it was lonely, and he hated it. In the back of his mind, he absolutely hated it. In the same regard, he is a prodigy. Kisuke Urahara is a prodigy. Ichigo is a prodigy. Hitsugaya is constantly called a prodigy. Kaien Shiba was considered a prodigy. There are so many prodigies and just people that are so powerful in this series just from birth. It's like I was just born, some people are just born with that natural level of talent that no matter how much hard work and dedication you put in, you will never match that talent. That talent is just, a gift from the heavens. And Kenpachi Zaraki was that child of prodigy. It's not stated so black and white in the manga, ironically, so I never really cared for it. But now, between getting older and, of course, reading the series multiple times and now watching this episode, I feel like the explanation just works so much better here. And actually, this isn't the only time in this episode there's an explanation that works, and we're going to get to that in a second. Just one final word about Kenpachi, the Kenpachi fight. The aesthetics, the blood, the red coloring. Mugen fight was good, but the red coloring of the blood worked even better. Unohana working around like he's Inuyasha, Blades of Blood, and all that stuff looked absolutely amazing. It's stuff we didn't get to see in the manga, so it's fantastic. Still not convinced that it heals her in any significant way. Not really sure if that was keto she was doing or if that was melting blood she was doing there in that one instance, because the most of it looked like an offensive ability. So I'm a little torn there whether that's her Bankai is still healing based or attack based, or is she still just healing herself with keto, because that's explained multiple times in the fight. So there's that. And once again, I might be repeating myself because I already recorded this, and then of course the microphone failed on me, so due to my dumbassery. So as a result, I might be repeating my point here again. So still not 100% certain what her Bankai does, but we know more of what it can do for sure. So that's cool. So Kenpachi is, of course, has killed Unohana, and once again, they loved each other. They absolutely loved each other, and not in the strictest sense, in a violent, platonic, just straightforward, battle-hungry sense. They respected and admired each other so much. They loved each other in this weird sort of twisted way. Definitely not, I'm not saying in the romantic setting. Like, they wouldn't never have settled down as husband and wife, I don't think. Though I'm sure there's fanfics out there about that. But I really believe that there was just an attraction that wasn't... It wasn't... You know what I mean? Like it's not a romantic love. It went a different avenue than that. And it was really quite sweet, the moment, you know, where she finally dies and lets go, and he's screaming about it, and she's like, just, you know, like a child, but you'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be fine. There are now enemies you can fight, and, you know, and you can go all out, and you also not only have enemies, but you have comrades in arms that you can cross swords with, so your skills will not dull, they will not deteriorate, they are on your level, and they will continue to keep increasing. So, though they showed Byakuya and Renji there in that shot, and I was like, oh my Christ, I'm like, I'm thinking show some stronger people, but that's just me. I like Byakuya and Renji, but that was kind of weird. And yeah, so then the next part of the episode, which we'll end off really quick, is they basically go to Nemaya's place, which is the Blade God himself, right? Old style, got the Hayori with the jacket style, you know, so he's dressing very much like early late 90s you know, gangster rapper sort of idea. He's dressing in that sort of swag, and it's looking. He's a character. Some people don't like him. Some people do love him. I think he's pretty fucking cool. And at the end of the day, we learn about Asaichis and all this stuff. Asauchis, sorry. And the fact that he's created all the Zanpakuto. Now, something that I had to go back and check in the manga here. So basically what ends up happening, and there's an extra part at the end of the episode. Don't know why it's not just part of the episode. Pretty much, Renji and Ichigo are trying to get their Zanpakutos fixed at this point, of course. They've gone through the other parts of the Royal Palace, now they're here, right? And they have to fight against formless Zanpakuto, pretty much, in this weird form. And in this humanoid form. Renji wins, Ichigo loses, and Nemaya pretty much says, you're out of here, and sends him back to the world and says, never come back to the Soul Society. You don't have a Zanpakuto, that makes you a human with spiritual pressure at best. You don't have a Zanpakuto, you're not a Soul Reaper, and the Soul Society is for Soul Reapers, not you. Which, technically speaking, no, the Soul Society is more than just Soul Reapers, but that being said, I get his point, and so he kicks him out. The thing is that I like the difference here in the manga is that it was sort of unclear in the manga how this was stated, but it was stated very much 100% better in the subtitles, at least. The way Nemaya explains it, he goes, for you to come this far, you know, like, the way he says it, I forget exactly, because now it's been a while, because I had to record this twice. The way he says this is absolutely fantastic, because he basically, after Ichigo is sent back home, he pretty much says that you've come this far without the power of Zanpakuto. Hell, completely... He says it so much better than I'm remembering, but the second line is, you've been able to come this far without an Asauchi. But as we know, all Zanpakutos, every single one, was made by him. And they're all Asauchis at some point. This was referenced and implied in the manga, both in the totally right translations, the totally legal ones, and the Viz ones, which I just checked. But it doesn't seem to imply the same thing it implies here, because it's a double line thing, and I know it's my review and I'm forgetting the main point I'm trying to make here, so that's very, very sad. But it's been a long Monday, okay? So at the end of the day, it was handled extremely well, and it hints at what we know is to come. Far better. It's much more obvious. It's written far more like, yeah, you never had a real Zanpakuto. You never had a Zanpakuto to begin with. And that is, you've come this far, but you never had a Zanpakuto at all. Period. Is basically what they say here, is what Nemaya says. And in the manga, it's more about the fact that, Ichigo's Zanpakuto is a little different. It's unique. It's like, it wasn't made by the Blade God. It implies something far different in the manga at the time, and I remember watching, like, even Tekking's reviews and stuff at the time. There were other theories floating around about why that was, and it wasn't exactly what we know it to be. So, yeah. Either way, I thought the episode was really good. It was quite straightforward. You know, Kenpachi versus Unohana, and then fucking Ichigo and Renji in Namaya's place, and Ichigo gets kicked out of the Soul Palace and is now back in front of his house. So, what's going to happen next? Well, everything but the rain. A lot of people looking forward to this. How far are they going to extend this one? How much more are they going to add, and how much more are they going to play with in this particular next set of episodes? I'm going to look really forward to it. So I know everyone's excited for that. So and we get that hour-long special, which is fantastic. So that being said, though, I think this review's gone on long enough, and as I said, I probably repeated the same parts twice. So, but that's it for me. Like, comment, and subscribe as always, and we will see you guys back here next time for more Bleach. That was near Blood War arc. Looking forward to it, and I apologize if I repeated a lot of the same points in the Unohana Kenpachi stuff. I'm tripping over my own words at this point when I have to record not once but twice, and already late. So anyways, thanks guys for watching. We'll see you back here next time. Bye bye.